shocked into action. Chad heads up the fight against Boko Haram. But can African neighbours accomplish what Nigeria has failed to do? And are there regional agendas at play? This is Inside Story. Hello there and welcome to the programme. I'm Shuli Ghosh. Nigeria's neighbours are banding together to fight the armed group Boko Haram. A regional alliance has been discussed for some months now, but military partners are reported to have lost patience with Nigeria and have opted to press ahead on their own. Chad will head up a three-nation force to include Cameroon and Niger. The joint response has taken on an added urgency as Boko Haram attacks escalate within and beyond Nigeria's borders. Chad says an immediate priority is to retake the northeastern Nigerian town of Baga on the shores of Lake Chad. It was seized by Boko Haram on January the 3rd in an offensive Amnesty International says could be its worst yet. These are satellite images taken by Amnesty before the attack. You can see healthy vegetation, which shows up as red. Now take a look at this, taken a few days after the attack, showing the scale of the destruction. Amnesty says 3,700 buildings were destroyed and as many as 2,000 people massacred. Nigeria's government disputes that, saying the number of people killed was just 150. Well, dozens of Chadian tanks are already heading to Cameroon. President Idris Deby said he stands side by side with his neighbour, which has faced repeated attacks by Boko Haram. Fighters from the group attacked a military base in the northwest city of Kolafata on January the 11th.
We cannot be indifferent to what is going on because we are directly concerned and because we believe Cameroon must not be alone as it faces Boko Haram. I have also called on the whole African continent to join us and form a wide coalition to face Boko Haram.
And African leaders are now responding. The regional bloc ECOWAS is meeting this week to discuss a broader regional military force. And the African Union says it's standing ready to assist.
Well, the region has decided how they want to fight Boko Haram, and we support what decision they've taken. They are fighting Boko Haram. They decide on how they want to fight it, and if they need further help beyond the region, I'm quite sure that the AU will consider that and will act accordingly.
So, can Nigeria's neighbours help resolve the conflict with Boko Haram, and does the solution lie in a military defeat? Lots to discuss with our guests. Let me introduce them. In Birmingham, Aliyu Musa, a specialist on Boko Haram and a researcher on war and conflict. And in Washington, D.C., Ni Akwete, an Africa policy analyst and researcher and former executive director of the human rights group Africa Action. Gentlemen, welcome to the programme. Aliyu, let me start with you. What do you make of the fact that Chad is now sending tanks to Cameroon to help defend itself from Boko Haram? Is that an indication that Boko Haram is becoming more of a problem across the region?
First of all, let me remind us that Boko Haram has always been a problem to the region. It's not just starting today. They've been a problem. They've been a major problem to the region, given the fact that Nigeria is not the only country that has been threatened. We've seen it moving into Cameroon. We've seen what they have done in places like Mali. There have been collaborations with the insurgents in Mali. And of course, if I take you back in time to 2009, when Boko Haram were crushed in Nigeria, they retreated to somewhere in northern Cameroon where they regrouped, they rearmed, and fought back from that point. So it is the right move, but probably at the wrong time. It's happening a bit too late because Boko Haram have actually done a massive destruction caused a massive destruction to Nigeria, and is also doing the same thing to other parts of the region. So it's the right step. It's the right step that they have been taking, but it's of course, it comes a bit too late.
There's also been a lot of criticism of the way Nigeria has been dealing with Boko Haram, so much so that these countries, Cameroon, Chad, Niger, have decided to go it alone. They were supposed to form a joint force with all 4 countries. They've now seemed to be saying, well, look, Nigeria is being very slow to act, so we'll just start with this alliance. Is that the way you see it?
Well, I think Nigeria, it's obviously Nigeria hasn't been able to do what it is supposed to do right from the beginning of this insurgency. But then I think Chad, Cameroon, and Niger going it alone without Nigeria wouldn't help the situation much, because I've called a number of times, I've called for joint intelligence gathering amongst the countries that have been affected, and of course among all other countries in the Sahel that will be affected potentially. And for 3 countries to say they want to go it alone and then kind of isolate Nigeria, it would not work. They definitely need to work alongside Nigeria and share intelligence among themselves. Of course, collaboration is needed, but when that collaboration it's beginning to be affected by kind of bad blood among them. For instance, Nigeria is saying that, well, if they are coming to fight Boko Haram, they have to conform to our own operational process, or else we probably won't cooperate with them. So it doesn't look very good at the minute.
Okay.
There is a need for a kind of collaboration amongst them.
We'll talk about how effective a regional task force can be in just a moment. Let me bring Ni in, because the Nigerian army has been deeply criticised for not being able to deal with Boko Haram. It's seen masses of desertions. They're complaining that they're under-resourced. They're complaining that they don't have ammunition. They're complaining they don't even have petrol to put in their vehicles half the time. Why is the Nigerian army so ill-equipped to fight this force?
Thanks for having us. I think that is an excellent question. You would want the Nigerians to take the issue very seriously and provide the military with the tools that they need to do the fight to beat Boko Haram. So I think it needs to be looked into why those specific charges are there. But one of the reasons that comes to my mind, I do think that the Nigerian government, this current government and President Jonathan, from my vantage point, they haven't been perfect, but I think that a lot of politics and covering of other people's own mistakes have been dumped on Nigeria. And, you know, I watch international relations with Africa. I think that the international community has dropped the ball in helping Nigeria, and they use the excuse, number one, that the president is not doing his job well and that the military are not doing their jobs well. We must remember Boko Haram has been violent for about 5 years now. For the first 3 or so years, the criticism was that the president was being too aggressive, he was taking too much of a militaristic approach, that they were abusing human rights. But if you listen now, the same critics have shifted, and now they are saying they are being too feckless and ineffective. So,
but isn't that a fair criticism of the Nigerian army? After all, they've had a state of emergency in play in the north of Nigeria for what, a year now, and it doesn't seem to have affected Boko Haram's activities at all.
I couldn't agree with you more, but my argument is that if you know, I mean, I'm no expert on war. I've never been a soldier, but I think if you listen to soldiers, wars are very unpredictable, and this is not the first engagement in which a side that should be winning is not doing well. We can look at Iraq, we can look at Vietnam. So yes, the Nigerians have had trouble, but I'm saying that this is a regional problem and an international problem. And the international community, on the one hand, initially, instead of helping, they were saying, listen, you are abusing human rights, these people have grievances, there's too much poverty. And then when the Nigerians shifted gear, when the government shifted gear to tackle them, they say, well, you are not doing it well enough. So I think that the criticisms haven't been consistent, and we have to have, in my view, a little more sympathy for the Nigerians and what they are trying to do. And certainly, we need to give them help, the same level of help that we have been giving to the Iraqi government to fight ISIS.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and we will definitely follow up on that. Let's just, for our viewers, give a little background to Boko Haram. As our guests have pointed out, Boko Haram, of course, has been around for some time now, but its more recent campaign of bombings, killings and abductions has given it more exposure. The group was founded in 2002, initially in opposition to Western education in Nigeria. In 2009, it began attacking police and other government targets. And Boko Haram leaders now say they want to establish an Islamic State or caliphate. 13,000 civilians have been killed in the group's campaign of violence, and an estimated 1.5 million people have been displaced. Their insurgency has been quite devastating to the people in Nigeria. Aliyu, how has Boko Haram become so strong? Where's it getting its weapons, its funding?
Well, like my colleague rightly mentioned, the government initially looked as if it was trying to do something, but I disagree with him that it is because of the criticism that the government is not doing the right thing. Boko Haram today is such a big mess, such a big menace, because Nigerian government decided to kind of sit back and watch things just go the way it is happening. If you look at what is happening, what happened after the Chibok girls were kidnapped, the government, the president was in denial for a long time before he came to agree that, yes, maybe these girls have been taken, let me do something. And even then, his response has not been very effective. So that has given Boko Haram the kind of courage to say, yes, if we are dealing with Nigeria, a very experienced military country, a very strong country with a very experienced military, then we can go ahead and annex parts of Nigeria. And that is what has been helping Boko Haram.
Of the fact that the Nigerian government hasn't tackled them head on. Is that one of the reasons why this group has become so strong?
Definitely is one of the reasons. We have a very strong military. How can you expect Nigerian soldiers to go and fight Boko Haram if they are not properly armed? That is the first question we should ask ourselves. If you want soldiers to be able to tackle them, then give them arms. They have been complaining. This is the first time in the history of Nigeria that soldiers are coming out to say it, even in the media, to say that we have not been given proper weapons to fight these people. You can't expect them to fight with their bare hands. And that has been the main problem. And the second problem really is because Boko Haram is connecting with other groups, other extremists with the same ideology, and that is also helping them. There's also a problem for weapons getting into Nigeria from other parts of the world. Only God knows where those weapons are coming from. But of course, there has been suggestion that they come from places like Libya, where the government has collapsed. So it's one of the reasons.
Let me bring Ni in. The whole question about Nigerian soldiers not being able to fight properly because they don't have the proper weapons or the ammunition. Last year, Goodluck Jonathan sought approval for a $1 billion loan from foreign institutions. He got approval for that. He said it was to upgrade the military, helicopters, ships, armament, hardware. Where is all that? Where's it gone?
I think that is a great question. Of course, it will take some time, especially for someone like me, to be able to say, here is the money they got, here is what they have purchased and not purchased, and here is why the units that are fighting are complaining. So I don't have the definitive answer, but I think we have to look at the...
Not even complaining, some of them are refusing to fight. Some of them are running away. Some of them have faced mutiny charges because of that.
Precisely. So I am not denying that there are these stories, these incidents, these incidents that have been backed with evidence that the soldiers are saying they don't have what they need to fight. I am saying that we have to look at the environment in which that happens. I'm keeping an open mind to find out why the government hasn't done that. I do think the government, I do have a disagreement with people who say the government hasn't taken it seriously. And if I might quickly repeat, for the first 3 years, we were told that the government was being too aggressive and that it was taking it too seriously and abusing human rights.
If you're saying, as you are, that the Nigerian government is taking it seriously, why then are they not part of this regional force which there was so much pressure to set up in the first place?
Well, we have to, I would like to look at the details of that, because the other thing we must remember is that after the Chibok girls, the regional countries actually had a conference in Paris, in France, and Nigeria was instrumental. They approached the French because the surrounding countries are former French colonies, and France has a lot of influence. In fact, Nigeria was criticized by other African countries. Why are you reaching out outside the continent? Why are you reaching out to France? So I think that from the evidence I have seen, Nigeria actually has also complained that they want the cooperation of the regional group. So the specific reason why they are not involved in this particular one, this latest alliance, I don't know. But let me point out that whenever you have...
Let's talk about this alliance.
If I might quickly add.
Okay, go ahead, Nee.
Yes. This is not the first time when you have regional approaches to conflict that there are differences between the countries. I mean, we look at the Second World War, and there was a lot of disagreement between Roosevelt and Churchill. So these things happen, and I do think that it's simplistic to dump all the criticism on the Nigerian government.
All right,
this
well,
is a regional problem.
Let's talk about a regional force. ECOWAS is talking about a regional force, maybe with African Union help, and we know that Chad and Cameroon and Niger are busy banding together to tackle Boko Haram. How effective can such a regional force be when there's quite a lot of mistrust between some countries in West Africa? How well can they cooperate?
I think that that is, again, a good question, and we are hoping that they all recognize how dangerous Boko Haram is and how regional it is, and that it is not just a Nigerian problem, and therefore the hope is that they will put their disagreements aside. One of my worries is that from Maiduguri, it's a very short travel to Central African Republic, which has had a huge, devastating war that has separated the religions, and therefore Boko Haram has to be contained. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the West Africans will realize that they have to put their differences aside. This is the region on fire. It can get much worse, and that they will cooperate. But I think the international community hasn't played its role. Intelligence and where the money is coming from, where the equipment are coming from, and especially satellite. You mentioned it at the beginning. If the international community had done what it needed to do, we should have been able to see where the Chibok girls are.
Let's talk about the international community's role in just a moment. Aliyu, what do you think about the effectiveness of a regional force with ECOWAS and African Union involvement? Do you think that something like that could be effective in combating Boko Haram?
Yeah, definitely. The regional force would be very effective if only, like my colleague has mentioned, they put aside their differences and decide to work together. I've talked a number of times about collaboration amongst the countries in the region. This is one time they need to really come out and collaborate and work together, share intelligence among themselves, and make sure that they deal with Boko Haram effectively. But then, if you remember, some time back, Cameroon was complaining that they will not share intelligence with Nigeria for only God knows why. And probably because we've had a number of claims that there are kind of saboteurs within the Nigerian setting, or the government, or the military.
There's also been claims that you know, Chad, the Chadian government was financially supporting Boko Haram, and also non-confirmed reports that a close aide of President Deby was arrested carrying missiles to Boko Haram. I mean, nobody knows the truth or otherwise of those allegations, but clearly there is mistrust there about who's really on whose side, or whether these countries are just working to their own agendas.
Well, I think that claim doesn't appear to be very credible. I mean, these are just mere claims. If of course, if it is credible, why did the Nigerian president go to Idris Deby to beg him to kind of intervene and negotiate a kind of ceasefire deal between Nigeria and Boko Haram, which eventually failed? Unless we are saying that the fact that Idris Deby sold Nigeria a kind of false ceasefire agreement, then we'll say he is behind the insurgency. We probably, unless we want to rely on that. Otherwise, I don't think there's any concrete claim or concrete facts that proves that the Chad is behind the insurgency. What we do know is all the time, whenever the insurgents are sent away from Nigeria or when they are attacked from Nigeria, they move to other parts of the sub-region. And this is because of the weakness of the countries in that structures in the sub-region, particularly the borders. The borders are so porous. So it's so easy for them to move from Nigeria to Chad, to Cameroon and other places. And this is why there has to be a kind of collaboration to make sure that they're blocked from running away.
OK, let's have a look at the role of the international community in all this. The French president has said France and other countries must do more against Boko Haram. Speaking at an annual conference in Paris, François Hollande said France must give more help to countries fighting this scourge. And he went on today, Cameroon, Niger, Chad and Benin are threatened, and this situation means the international community must take appropriate action. Do you think Western countries should be doing more against Boko Haram?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the one statement from the French president that I agree with. And in fact, to tell you how strongly I feel about it, I might even say that he's understating what needs to be done. Because after the Chibok girls, France, the UK, and the United States, maybe Israel and maybe China, all said they will help. But they haven't even provided, there are complaints by the Nigerians that they haven't shared intelligence. I don't understand why with all their capabilities, they don't have satellite images. If Amnesty International, a human rights organization, can have satellite images, why haven't these 4 or 5 major international powers provided the satellite to find out how Boko Haram moves, intelligence for where their money comes from?
Why do you think that is? Is it because Boko Haram is not seen as much as a threat as, say, other Islamist groups like ISIL?
Absolutely. That is my big grievance, because I think, you know, I've lived in the United States for decades and I've followed U.S. relations with Africa, and my enduring grievance is that African issues are regarded as less important. You might even say that when there are African tragedies and African lives, they are seen as less important compared to others. Boko Haram, as Aliyu mentioned, has been involved in Mali. They could go as far as Central Africa Republic. So the threat is huge, but I think the international community simply shrugs it off.
That's a very harsh assessment there, Nee. What do you think about that, Aliyu, that African problems are not seen as important by Western countries?
Well, as much as I agree that Western countries haven't done much to help Nigeria, based on the narrative that African problems are not taken seriously as they should be by Western countries. But I also blame African countries for not doing enough to help themselves first. Take a look at what is happening in Nigeria today. Nigeria has been involved in peacekeeping operations in many countries for a long time. With the kind of experience we have, we should by now be able to tackle Boko Haram. But then I'll also take us back to the complaints the U.S. military made sometimes back when they said they shared intelligence with Nigeria, but Nigeria did not act on it, on the Chibok girls. And then, of course, not only the U.S. government said that, so there is a senator with the Nigerian National Assembly, one senator who said several times he told the Nigerian government, based on information he got from people, local people, where the girls were. But the government looked unwilling. It was completely unwilling to do something about it. So if we are blaming others for not doing anything, we should also be looking at what we've done ourselves. What have we done?
Do you think the new momentum in West Africa, this move to form a regional alliance, will that be the shove Nigeria needs to actually start sharing intelligence and to do more as part of a regional task force against Boko Haram?
Possibly, yes. I think so. If Nigeria sees other countries acting and taking the lead, probably it will be kind of juggled into acting to say, yes, I have always claimed to be an African leader or champion. Then this is the right time for me to show that that leadership quality is still within my reach. So I think it's probably the thing that is needed now to kind of push Nigeria into action. Otherwise, Nigeria doesn't look like acting as it should be.
Okay. Gentlemen, it's been a fascinating discussion, but we have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because of we've run out of time. But thank you very much indeed to both my guests for joining me today. Aliyu Musa in Birmingham and Ni Kwete in Washington, D.C. And do let us know your thoughts about this show or any other. You can go to our website, aljazeera.com, or you can post your comments at facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also contact us on Twitter at AJ Inside Story. I'm Shuli Ghosh. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.